What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Encourage Mindset. I'm your host, Ethan Vandehei, and I'm excited because today is going to be my first episode of 2026. I've been a little behind as well, trying to enjoy the new year, enjoy the time away, and also the holidays. And I'm sure many of you listening can say the same. And alongside me today, I have an incredible guest. He has a wealth of knowledge and expertise in a variety of things, especially entrepreneurship. George, welcome to the show. And why don't you tell a little bit about yourself and the story and why you're wearing a hat that says the AI guy?
Yeah. Well, thank you for the lovely introduction. I'm excited to be here. I think this is my first podcast that I've been on where I'm the guest and not the host. So this is exciting for me. But yeah, so like Ethan said, my name is George Paladichk, and I own a company called Nail, and we pretty much just build AI systems for home service companies that help them kind of get more jobs out of the leads that they already get. A lot of this comes from simple tools like AI receptionists or AI assistants that can help lubricate the conversion process, I guess. But I am 21 years old. I am still in school. I go to the University of Colorado Boulder. I'm in my actually last semester. I graduate this May with a degree in marketing. So that's pretty cool. And I born and raised in Colorado. I originally got into the whole entrepreneurship game when I came to CU Boulder. When I turned 18, I actually signed my first, like the day I turned 18, I signed my first document since I was legally allowed to at 18. I signed my first LLC to do wholesale real estate, actually. And it was terrible. I was not very good at it. I thought it was going to be a lot easier than what it was. And I never sold anything, or I never wholesaled any deals or anything like that. But I got into my freshman year of college, and I started to learn about this thing, digital marketing. I was like, oh, websites and ads and SEO and all this cool stuff. I was like, oh, this is fun. I'm a relatively tech, tech. I'm a tech guy. I understand it. It's a cool. I was like, this sounds cool. I think I either saw like a podcast episode or an ad or something from Josh Nelson of Seven Figure Agency, and I was like, oh, this sounds sweet. I love it. This is so cool. So I dove into trying to start my own digital marketing agency. And I did fairly okay. I mean, for someone who didn't know anything about business and who had no prior experience, I was a barista at Starbucks. So like I had no idea about anything. So for someone who didn't know anything about anything, I think I did pretty okay. I got some clients, made a little bit of money, helped pay the bills, lost a lot of money too, though. Lost a lot of time, but I learned a lot of cool stuff. And over the past, I would say, year and a half, I've started this new journey into software, SaaS, and AI. And while I was running my digital marketing agency, I was kind of trying to figure out how else can I differentiate myself. There's a million and one agencies out there. I'm just another kid that's kind of like doing this stuff. I like, how can I make myself different from everybody else? So I was really leaning into the go high level SaaS play. And I was like, how can I use this to do a little bit more of what I'm doing? And I really started to learn a lot about conversational AI, which at the time was a relatively new thing, where, AI, you can train it to have a set conversation based on a set of variables, and it can help, with lead conversion and all this cool stuff. And so I was like, oh, this is really interesting. So I got into that, learned a lot about it really, really quickly, had a lot of mentors teach me a lot about it. Eventually got into this partnership with another lead gen agency who ended up kind of taking over the clients of my old agency. And then we kind of formed this new business around this whole AI play of building conversational AI to help businesses convert more leads. And that didn't last very long. It just wasn't really the right setup for me. There's, nothing against them, but it wasn't the right setup for me at the time that I was in. And so I went ahead and then I kind of took all the knowledge that I had learned from that and started what is now called Nail. And we have grown like insanely since then. We've had, clients that I would have never thought we've had. We've been able to do revenue that I would have never thought, all from just kind of trying stuff and failing forward, I guess. And so, yeah, so that's kind of a long-winded type answer for kind of how I am all my entrepreneurial experience, I guess.
No, I love that. It's a great long-winded answer, and it's awesome for everybody listening because it relates to so many things, right? Because this is a podcast and it's so digestible for people that are ambitious. So you talked about a couple of factors. Like right now you're in college. There's a lot of people in college that don't even know if they're going to get a job in the next couple of years,
Yeah.
or even right in May when they graduate. There's a bunch
Yeah.
of people in high school that are probably starting to realize that social media and becoming an affiliate of a product or a service is a huge gem or opportunity. And so like you created this AI conversationally called Nail, which is awesome. And it's obviously creating a huge change really in the home services space, which is awesome. And that's kind of how we got connected a little bit through partnerships. But that's the power that I want to really focus on is like you're building all this and you're meeting people and you keep meeting people and you create content that allows you to meet more people. So I think the core that really is fundamentally around you and Nail is the power of networking, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think I look back on what actions have I taken throughout, the very short 2 years that I've kind of been very serious. I guess it's been like 4 now, but whatever. The short period of time that I've been involved in, the business world, what actions have actually led to things working. And for me, I spent so much time cold calling. I spent so much time like trying to DM people. I spent so much time like prospecting in that traditional sense. And I think back of like, okay, how did I actually get to where I am today? Well, if I trace it all back, it all came back to meeting people through podcasting, right? Like one of the owners of the business that I ended up partnering with in 2025 that I moved on from, but that kind of set me up to where I am now. I met him through a podcast that I was just reached out and was like, hey, can we do an episode? That podcast never aired because there were some people who didn't want it to air and there were some issues that happened, but it came through that podcast. And I was like, okay, so then I met that guy. And then I met another guy. And then I met another guy, and it just snowballed into this effect of every person that I've met and who has attributed some amount of success to where I'm at today, all can be traced back to that one initial conversation. And so I think about that and I think about, okay, well, damn, how can I leverage that fact to further grow the business instead of, fighting against the grain and trying to do all these things that never really netted me anything? Why don't I just dump all my energy into podcasting, coming on shows, meeting new people, networking, and doing all these community building activities that have actually ended up making me a lot of money, right? Like it's been a really weird realization that I've had to have over the past 6 months or so, because I've been like, wow, I have been focusing on the wrong thing the whole time.
Totally. Yeah. And that's a good eye opener for a lot of people. And I think you realize now that like authentic conversation and just building a small relationship, even just having somebody that you barely know, inviting them onto a podcast, you get to have a 20 to 30-minute conversation. You build a great rapport. And at the end of the day, they get to see your true core values. You get to see their true core values and what they believe in. And then it kind of spirals into, like you said, it leads to business after a while. And I think that's the new thing that's really fascinating is a lot of people are starting to probably recognize that what you're doing, George, is a successful pattern. And like you just said, you're going to put more energy and emphasis into this successful pattern, rather than doing all these time wasters like cold calling or using ChatGPT to find emails and emailing people, like, or just using LinkedIn and always sending the same LinkedIn message. Yeah. Like it's so irritating because I think some people aren't really seeing that yet. Is like you're sending the same message to like 100 people. Like I'm on the receiving end of that 9 times out of 10. I'm never really going to respond to that because it's not really showing anything engaging. But if some guy named George shoots me a DM, says like, hey, you want to be on my podcast and this is what it's talking about, you're like, yeah, because at the end of the day, it creates content for both sides of the parties, which people are looking for these days.
Yeah. And I think 2 points on that. Number one, it separates yourself from the crowd, right? It shows that you're different. You're not sending the same message. You're not doing all that. And it at least gets you in the door, right? Like there's still a whole nother methodology of how to turn just that one podcast episode into like an actual relationship that builds upon itself and can expand further. And there's a whole method of how you actually do that. But the second piece is like, it all comes back to authenticity. I think we have come into this like pendulum swing where for a really long time, 10 years ago or whatever it was, like you could really make some serious money if you just blasted 1,000 messages out to somebody because it's a numbers game. And it still is. Like, I'm not saying it doesn't work anymore, but the effectiveness has gone way down because people are so used to it. Because for the past 10 years, you've been getting blasted with texts and emails and DMs and all this stuff. And so there's a whole nother conversation around consumer sentiment and authenticity and why consumers are like swinging more towards authenticity in politics and in media and in business and all this other stuff. But it's true even in like B2B interactions, right? Like people are wanting that authentic connection, relationship. Like when you think about, I really started to change my perspective on this when I thought about how do I buy stuff, right? So for example, me and you have a mutual friend, Dennis Yu, which is how we actually got connected. And I joined his kind of apprenticeship mentor program, just kind of out of the blue. Like I didn't really have a reason for why I did, but I was like, okay, how did I end up in that buying situation? Well, okay, I know Dennis has a really large personal brand around digital marketing and just kind of internet online business in general, right? He's just kind of a really well-known guy. He, a lot of people that I know and respect look up to him and talk well about him, et cetera. So I'm like, okay, so he has some sort of relevance in my brain and has some sort of authority. Okay, that's number one. Number two, I keep seeing that he's, talking about these cool things that he's doing with this program, and he's bringing in all these other people and who else has already been in the program. And it adds authority and it adds relevance and it adds authenticity, right? Because I can see he's not just reaching out to me and sending a DM saying, hey, George, it looks like you'd be a great fit for our program. You want to come join it and spend all this money and do, right? Like he's not doing that. He's publishing and creating content and building authority around, look at who's already been in this program, look at where they're at, and we're opening up spots, and this is what it is, and this is what we teach, and this is what we do, whatever. Like it builds that authenticity because you can see that they're actually involved with real people. There's real situations going on here. And I think that is the way that the pendulum is swinging right now. We're not totally on the other side, but like it's heading in that direction. And I think that the more you can leverage things like what me and Ethan are doing right here, which is podcasting, connecting with real people. Me and Ethan live across the country from each other. Like, there's no way that we would have ever met if it weren't for just like wanting to do mutually beneficial things together and making these cool videos and talk about cool stuff and all of that. So I think the more you can leverage those types of relationships where it's mutually beneficial to both parties and shows that you're a real human trying to do real things that benefit real people, like that's the way to win business in my mind going forward.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And I think businesses these days need to take advantage of that. So if you are a business owner right now listening to this podcast, there's several things that you can do to take advantage of this. One, Google reviews. Take advantage of those. Showcase those reviews. Yelp. Showcase your Yelp reviews. Obviously, most people realize that Yelp's probably where the negativity goes, but if you get a great Yelp score, that's something to be excited about, especially in the exterior space or in the law firm space or whatever your service space is, because a lot of those get just drilled and drilled and drilled. And that's all authentic content that George is talking about. Like, yeah, you don't need to be on every single podcast in your industry, but if you continue to have customers that have authentic voices as well, that's why sometimes creating those commercials where your customers giving you a strong testimonial, those will live endlessly because it is a true customer saying great things. And it all deals with the power of networking, right? I think that's what George is trying to stem and realize. Like, even though he chose to be a part of the home services space, which is don't get me wrong, that is full of networking. All it takes is you go into this BNI group, or you go here and you go into this group, or you go to the Chamber of Commerce. That's also where these small businesses, and if you're a small entrepreneur, you need to start networking in your local communities, like George is saying, your Chamber of Commerce. Start networking at golf events where you can just be there and support organizations, or maybe it's a dinner of some sort, or a gala, whatever it is, where it's like so minimal, but you're walking around, introducing yourself, shaking hands. It's huge these days, because I think I agree with you a lot. A lot of these people are just looking for truth and honesty. And I agree that the media is really lacking that a lot of the times. Like, no joke. Like, not that I want to talk politics, but look at what happened in Minnesota, where Nick Shirley's uncovering all this fraud, and he's just having a camera and walking around, and it's taking him like, yeah, he had some guy named David give him data and help, but like, all he's doing is walking around with the camera and being himself and showing like, this is what's going on in the world, and this is what people aren't sharing. So like, this is what the listeners need to do and wake up, is like, just continue to be truthful and authentic, because if you're not, it's going to get caught so easily nowadays.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest, like, if I could go back and change, I wouldn't really change a lot, but if someone were like, well, what would you do differently if you had to start from day one again? I think the biggest thing would be to focus way less on the action of whatever you're trying to do, right? The action of prospecting, the action of doing whatever. And it's like you said, like, I would way rather spend my time, and I know now that it would be way better spent going out to 3 or 4 local BNI chambers, connecting with the contractors in there, and just talking to them and saying, okay, what problems do you have? What types of issues are you facing with your marketing? Is there some way that I can help? And being honest and truthful about who you are and what you're trying to do, right? Like, hey, I'm a student. I'm trying to make a name for myself. I'm trying to do something big. And, I want to start by learning how to do something like that in a real business, blah, 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 blah. Instead of going out trying to pretend that I'm somebody who I'm not, trying to pretend that I'm some big agency, trying to pretend that I'm this, this, and this. And then it just gets caught so easily. So I think you're exactly correct. I think the more you can be authentic and the more you can show your true intentions behind whatever you're trying to do, the better. Because then, number one, it forces you to have good intentions. And number two, it builds stronger relationships, because everyone that I've done that with now, like, I have 3 or 4 businesses here in my local area that I've gone and done that with, who can vouch for me to the moon and back, because they realize that, like, hey, this is just some kid who's a hard worker, who's trying to go out there and do something big and trying to support himself and support his family. And they're all about it. Right. And you come off as way more, this is like very specific to the marketing world, but like, you come off as way more of a trustable person than someone, the 4,000th email that they've gotten in their inbox this month,
Also, just taking marketing and entrepreneurship out of the whole conversation today in the podcast, like, the simplest thing that I've seen you do consistently over and over again and again on your LinkedIn, and just like in general, as knowing you as a person through Dennis, is like, just showing up is huge. Like, let's say you don't have the greatest, job, or the greatest product or service yet, or whatever it may be that you're trying to develop. Just showing up on time, being friendly, being outgoing, realizing that, not everybody's going to say yes, but the consistency thing that I see with you, George, is just showing up. That's the biggest thing. Like, you drove like 5 or 6 hours to go shoot a podcast with somebody else. And that's the simple thing, just showing up. Like, yeah, this is great. And we're doing this, across the country, because you're in Colorado and I'm in Wisconsin. But like, that little part where it's like, I'm just going to go a little bit extra more and show up and show that I actually care. That is just different in the space of business, but also different in the space of personal development that a lot of people are losing these days.
Yeah. 2 points on that. Number one, I completely agree that it's very powerful for personal development, because I have this theory that I've kind of coined for myself that I've had for the past like 4 years. And I think the world overall would be a much better place if everyone just put a little bit more effort into whatever they did, right? No matter what it is that you do, no matter what it is that you're doing in your day-to-day, in your relationships, in your health, in your work, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Like the world as a whole would just be way better off if people put a little bit more effort in to what they did. And I really started to learn that when I saw how much effort it took to get to where I wanted to go. And I was like, okay, well, that's the sacrifice that I'm willing to make. But I see so often that people get really complacent really easily. And again, not even just in business, but in their relationships, in their health, in their lifestyle, whatever it might be. And it takes away like what could have been. Right. And I that's always been my biggest fear, is like not being able to live out my true life and live out my full potential because I didn't put enough effort in and all of that sort of stuff. So, you can apply it to any situation. Politicians would be better off if they just put a little bit more effort into whatever they did. Business owners would be better off if they just put a little bit more effort. Like it goes on and on. So you can apply it to any situation. But the second piece there of kind of doing the little bit of extra work, especially when you're a little bit less known, especially when you're a little bit less prevalent in whatever you're trying to do. Like when I drove out, 8 hours round trip, but between Seattle or Metro Seattle and Yakima or wherever it is that Chris was in for the Next Level Pros podcast. Like I probably would have never done that 2 years ago, but I recognize now that like, okay, yeah, maybe Chris isn't going to, walk in and be like, you're the best entrepreneur. Here's $100,000 deal. And we're going to do all this business together and you're going to make all this money. Like, that's not really the point, right? The point is to show not even myself, but also Chris and the people in the office and the people who end up watching the podcast to say like, oh, damn, George is like really about that, right? Like he puts in that little bit of extra work. And even if it was just for a simple podcast episode that lasted an hour, and then I filmed like 2 other videos and that was it, right? Like the drive was longer than the time I was actually there. That's okay, because I know that it shows well on myself, but it also shows well on what I'm trying to do. Like people put a little bit more value into what you're trying to build if they can see that you are really, really, really adamant about getting there. And so I think that's been one of my redeeming qualities, is that the people that I've met with and the people that I've networked with have had a little bit more, they've put their guard down a little bit more because they can see how hard I want to go for it and how much work I'm willing to put in to get there. And I think that's something that people forget about, is 90% of the people above you will respect you a lot more for working harder and trying more.
Totally. And I think the generations play a big factor in that too. Like I think there's a lot of harsh judgment on certain generations, but it is what it is, because at the end of the day, you said it's best. You just got to prove yourself and prove what you're doing is, the best for you, but also the best for what you view the future. And then also to your other point, like I agree. I think if you give a little bit extra, one of the spaces that really needs a little bit extra is the hospitality and customer service space. Like that's kind of one of the reasons why I think your product and service is really cool, because it's going to help elevate that specific space. Because when people, want to talk to somebody, most of the time they get some awful robotic, foreign, terrible sounding, it's just garbage, right? So at least if you can build an AI or you can build something into your business, maybe it's after hours and it's a human, or whether it is AI, but you work on it so it actually makes sense within your business and the AI or human really knows your business, like that makes a lot of sense these days. Versus like, if your phone rings and you don't answer it, that could, like you said, that could be a loss of a lot of money and you just don't recognize it. And so that's for anybody these days. But George, what is like a thing outside of networking that you've realized, as an entrepreneur that you're going to invest more time in?
Outside of networking for my entrepreneurial endeavors.
Yeah, for 2026, I mean, you're going to invest some more time in networking and podcasting, it sounds like, but anything else that you're just like, man, this is really something I'm going to be ambitious about?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So for business, there's really 2 areas of focus that I have for 2026. And number one is getting in front of key figureheads, whether that's clients, whether that's podcast guests, whether that's whatever it might be, like getting in that circle is really important to me. So, the methods of actually doing that are vary from, a bunch of different things, but that's kind of the overarching umbrella strategy, is just getting in front of key figureheads in my space and that are part of my target market, that sort of thing. And the second thing is product development. I think a lot of people, again, goes back to the effort thing. I think a lot of people would be a lot better off if they just put a little bit more effort into what they were actually delivering to the world, especially in the case of AI. For those of you who don't know, like my bread and butter and our bread and butter at Nail is AI voice receptionist. So an AI agent that'll answer the phone and help answer questions, book appointments, qualify leads, etc. Either, during hours if someone couldn't get to the phone, or after hours. And what I've noticed in that space is there's kind of a handful of really big players that are really bad, right? Like there's some of them that came from like a big VoIP provider that then developed this AI thing, and it's like fine, but it's really inexpensive and it's just the quality is terrible. Or it's like the early adopters. I'm not going to name drop, obviously, but there's early adopters that came out and developed this technology, and they were kind of the first, and they have like this scale mentality, and they are going to, provide it to everyone and anyone in the world. And it's also really bad, right? And then there's the tiny guys, the like N8N gurus, and the people who are just out there like trying to build with all these no code tools, and like no hate to any of them or anything. That's how I got started. But like they're playing small ball, and I see a lot of that. And so I'm trying to fit into this space of like, okay, how can I develop the best sounding, best conversationally, the best metrics wise, like provides the most value in terms of KPIs, right? Like how can I provide the best product possible for a very, 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 very specific target, and then forget about everything else? Because one thing that I struggle with is seeing other people that do something similar to what I do, or maybe the exact same thing, and thinking, oh shit, like I can't, like someone already did it, right? I've been beat, right? And I struggle with that sometimes. And so I'm focusing more on, okay, how can I be the best that I can be in a really tiny pond and make a lot of money from that one pond, right? And so that's something that me and Dennis actually have been working on, is like, okay, how can I get in front of people in that pond, number one, and then how can I make the product the best that I can? So those are my real two main business focuses, because if you have a good product, people talk about it, and it kind of feeds into that the first thing, right? Which is getting in front of key figureheads. And if you can get in front of key figureheads and you have the best product in the space, there's not a whole lot of selling that you have to do. It's more about logistics, right?
Yeah, that's gem dropping right there, George. That's a lot of gems. Yeah. Just literally doing your fundamentals correct is huge. And then realizing you don't have to have a perfect product or perfect service to go into the market. Like you can build that stuff over time, but as long as you're just,
which is what we did.
Yeah. And that's huge. And that's, I think, what's lost a lot in business, but also like personally as well. I think a lot of people think they need to be this perfect person before they enter a relationship, or this perfect person before they enter, that said career that they think they're going to just knock out of the park. And you evolve with your career, and you evolve in a relationship, and you evolve with all these things. And that's a key thing that you brought up that I wanted to highlight.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Especially in business, people think that they have to understand every single piece of the puzzle before they can go to market per se. And like one thing that we did, I signed clients before I knew anything about what I was doing, right? Like I signed clients before I had any idea of how I was actually going to get it done. And I got feedback from them saying like, what's important to you? Like, what do you want? One of my first clients that we ever really developed is Dan Blanc of Fence King. I have podcast episodes with him. He's a killer. And he was one of the first 5 or so that we signed up. And he pushed me a lot because he wanted a lot of things, or he was expecting a lot of things that I hadn't thought of before, and things that I hadn't made a plan for, right? And so I was like, okay, well, shit, I kind of have to just figure it out. And we did. And the first rendition of his agent was pretty bad. Like in my opinion now, like it wasn't really that good, but it worked for the time, right? And over time, obviously, it's gotten better, and we've upgraded and done all this cool stuff. But I learned how to build the product, and I learned how to provide what I was trying to provide through actually getting real information from my customers about A, what's important to them, and B, what does success actually look like? So instead of going out and trying to create all these features and trying to solve these issues that weren't really issues and trying to do all this stuff that was just a time waster, I focused on, okay, what is he actually telling me back that matters for his business and that is important for this product that he wants, right? And I've taken that same philosophy into our much larger enterprise clients that have hundreds and hundreds of locations across the United States. Same thing. I'm not going to sit there and nitpick and say, okay, what's every single issue that's wrong with what's every single issue that we're having right now, and what's every single tiny misstep that this agent is making, and then trying to fix all of those. Like, no, okay, is it doing the job that it was designed to do? Yes. Okay. Is it doing that without making any customer upset? Yes. Okay. So we're good, right? Like it's okay. It's okay if minute things happen, because at the end of the day, it's succeeding in what it was assigned to do, right? And so I that's really important for product. But also I think like you said, in the personal world, I see this all the time, because even though it doesn't really look like it, I'm a big fan of the gym, and I like to go to the gym pretty often. And so I see this all the time with people who are just now getting into the gym. Like, I've been going to the gym for a really long time. Again, I don't look like it, but I am. And I see this all the time. Like, my girlfriend, for example, she wants to start going to the gym because she thinks it'll be good for her to just get out and move a little bit more. Great. But she doesn't want to go by herself because she doesn't know what to do. She doesn't know anything about, she knows what she wants to get out of it, right? She wants to have better toned abs and a bigger butt, whatever. Yeah. But she doesn't know how to actually do those things. And like, okay, there's all these machines and there's all these tools that you can use, but she doesn't know what to do. So she just doesn't start, right? Because she doesn't know anything, which is fair. And especially for something like the gym, where society has kind of placed judgment on people who go somewhere and don't look like they know what they're doing. Fair.
Yep. Ridiculous.
So I've started, she's going to start coming with me and going to start doing a lot of stuff. I'm going to start teaching her how to do stuff, but it's the same thing, right? Like, people think that they have to know everything about everything to even begin on something. And again, I think it's part of a pendulum swing. We're starting to see some, not all, but some people realizing that that's not really the case. You can just start things and learn as you go. And that's kind of the best way to do it. And so that's what I've been doing for business. That's what I've been doing in my personal development. Like, I want to start running again. I used to run a lot in high school, and I don't know anything about calorie tracking or all the metrics that you can do with all those apps and stuff, but I don't really care. Like, I just give me like a normal pair of tennis shoes and I'll start running and I'll figure it out as I go, So I think that's probably one of the biggest lessons that I've learned over my past however many years of doing this is like, just start doing something and you'll figure it out.
Geez, I feel like I'm talking to the next great thing. Like, I'm talking to Phil Knight from Nike over here. Jeez Louise.
Phil Knight from Nike.
It's just a blessing to have you on, George. It's a blessing to have your wisdom shared with my podcast audience. I think there's a lot of young, hungry entrepreneurs that are seeking somebody else to, come on to the spotlight and share a lot of things. And doesn't really matter what type of business you run. I think a lot of the same formulas and fundamentals and principles are all relatively, intertwined. So I appreciate what you did and shared. And I think this is going to turn into an incredible episode for everybody. Is there anything else you want to share on Encourage Mindset before we kind of take off?
I think the only other thing that I would want to mention is focus. I think focus is really underrated. Like yesterday, I turned down a friend of mine had a deal that they weren't too interested in fulfilling on. And so they wanted to pass it over to me. And it was a multiple 5-figure deal. Like, it was big, and it was, tens of thousands of dollars that I could have taken on and said yes, but it was outside of my focus for right now. And it was something that it's not aligned with where I'm trying to go and kind of what we're trying to get really good at. And so I turned it down and I felt okay about it. I was like, yeah, sure. Maybe it was a lot of money, but at the end of the day, I know it's going to save me a lot of time and effort and energy and all that cool stuff. So I think focus is really underrated. I think it's kind of normal these days to have your attention being pulled like 40 million different ways and have it be kind of normalized that like, oh, I'm a multitasker. I can do this, this, and this, and this, and try and, think that you're gonna dip your toe in like 6 different buckets and then actually get somewhere. So I think it's really important to find like one or two things, no matter what it is in business or life or whatever, to focus really, really hard on, and then just do everything in your power to accomplish whatever you're trying to accomplish in those one or two areas and continue to go from there. I mean, I think that's been one of, again, another redeeming quality I think I've had in business is being extremely focused on a very specific set of problems, issues, solutions, products, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, and like for example, I graduate in May, like I said. So right now my focus is just make the business run and then graduate. And so those are like the only two things that I really care about for right now. But after I graduate, like for the next 5 years, I was writing this down in my notebook the other day. Is like the only things that are really important to me over the next 5 years are my financial health, my physical health, and the health of my relationships. And if anything that I'm doing is not fitting in within those three buckets, then it's not really that important to me. Right. And so I think, at the end of the day, focus is really underrated.
I love that. I'll let that kind of be the gatekeeping secret of the podcast is focus. So thanks so much for coming on, George. It's always a pleasure. And let's stay in touch as always.
Always, my friend. You have a good one.
You too. Thanks, man.